Today is a very special and proud day here at Arise. We are celebrating our first Emmy Award for the Arise News documentary, Game Changers, How the Harlem Globetrotters Battled Racism. This Arise News special takes a look at the early days of professional basketball and how the Harlem Globetrotters not only dealt with racism, but helped change the world of sports. And we have two very special guests here to weigh in. One is from the Globetrotters from the 40s and 50s, Carl Green. Also joining us is Mark Johnson, the son of another Trotter, Andy Johnson. Mark is the author of Basketball Slave, the Andy Johnson Harlem Globetrotter story. Welcome, gentlemen. It is a huge pleasure to meet both of you. You know, growing up in New York, I don't know anybody who did not go to Harlem Globetrotter games. But I don't think any of us who watched the games understood what you guys went through on the court and off the court. There was a real discrepancy between what it was to be a black player and a white player.
Definitely so. You know, the white players that we played against, most of them were college All-Americans. And the NBA only had 8 teams. So a lot of players couldn't play in the NBA because, you know, all players were white. And so they would travel playing against us. And in those days, you know, in the South and different places, a lot of prejudice. So some of the players that we played against used to try to play hard enough to beat us. And the game was like, we would play the game, and you play hard as you can. And then in the last part of the game, we put on a show. Mm-hmm. So what happened, my years, they thought that they would outplay us, you know, to show people that they could beat us. And a lot of physical things happened during those days.
And what was important to note is that while it was a show, the games were legitimate.
Right.
Both teams were there to win.
Right.
And my understanding is, from what I understand, white teams did not always want to play you. You had to bring teams with you.
Right. Right. You know, they traveled, and Abe Saperstein paid them to travel with us in the South and different places, you know.
My understanding, you talk about your father's experience a little bit. The teams, the players were treated completely differently on the court and off the court. And how did that make them feel?
Well, I mean, how anyone feel by being treated differently. But I think it was even more so simply because these guys were the headliners. So how could you treat the headliners worse than you would treat the other teams or even the halftime acts that would perform?
Were you surprised when you started writing this book? Were you surprised at
Absolutely.
The inequality? And
Absolutely, absolutely. It was unbelievable. This actually started, you know, I started this project by, you know, my father had a pension. The NBA created a pension for NBA players. And let me make note, there's nothing set aside for these guys that played. But NBA players, and when I start investigating, because I didn't take everything for word from my father. He said I listened, but I went and investigated everything that he told me. And when I start uncovering pretty much how he was treated, how these guys were treated, and how America looks at the Harlem Globetrotters, I was appalled. I got angry. I think I went through every range of emotion when I found this information out.
Do you think today's NBA would look like it does today without the Globetrotters, without what you did?
No,
no,
not at all.
And do you think the current NBA players understand that and respect that?
No.
No.
Do you talk to them and try to educate them?
No.
No. Well, I can say that I have tried to reach out to both NBA corporate and NBA properties and NBA and Harlem Globetrotter organizations to let them know that these guys, the guys that paved the way, that set the groundwork, are still out here. And, you know, they should be treated as much as respect from, you know, the Tuskegee Airmen or any other ambassador or someone that paved the way for organizations today.
Carl, you work in the community right now, and you work in working with kids on basketball. Tell me what that's like.
It's not on basketball. It's just for my community where I grew up. A friend of mine, we started a foundation called Our Children Foundation. So we've had it like 43 years, you know, helping kids, raising kids, and trying to teach them to get their education and how to mingle with people, you know. So been doing that for 42 years.
What do you want to see change differently? Do you want to see some sort of a formal establishment of what the Globetrotters meant? Should there be an NBA Hall of Fame? Should they be there?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much a few years ago, they put in the Harlem Globetrotters in the Hall of Fame. But when that happened, they put a whole team in. It's like putting a whole team that's in the NBA. These guys were individuals. They were individual. I mean, they put them in individually one by one, but they really don't put these guys where they're supposed to be. And I think the NBA and the Harlem Globetrotter organization should still reach out and help these guys. And that's part of what I've been trying to do for the last few years.
Do you stay in touch with your teammates?
The few that are left.
Yeah.
It's only maybe 6 or 7.
Do they feel like they're starting to finally get the credit they deserve?
No.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
No.
I mean, literally, one of the things that we've been trying to do is just, again, knock on the doors and let other, whether it be current NBA players, former NBA players. Now, there are NBA players that played between 1950 and 1960 that know about these guys because either they played against them or coached or something along those lines.
Mark, Carol, thank you so much. An honor to meet both of you. Thank you.
Thank you so
I'm Andrew
much.
Schmertz. Thanks for watching Arise Exchange. See you tomorrow.